Hello and welcome back to the Student Hub Live. In this session, we're going to take a look at online tutorials, one of the most exciting things about being an OU student, because this is your chance to connect with your tutor or other tutors and other students in an online space to support your learning. They're absolutely brilliant, and we've got a brand new system for them this year. So I'm joined by Rod and Zoe. Thank you so much for coming along and showing us. Now, you both work in teaching and learning innovation at the Open University, and you, I'm told, have admin rights to every single room and know absolutely everything there is to know about this system.
Yeah.
But I'm
I've got the admin rights, she's got the
No. But I'm told that you know everything about them and that they're very, very easy to use. And I've used them myself, and they're really, really intuitive, friendly, nice spaces. I think they're a massive improvement on the system that we used to have because they're so simple to use. So, tell us about how they work for students, and also we briefly covered where to get to them from the student homepage and to look at the tutorials tab on Students Modules website.
Sure.
But I wonder if you can talk us through the system and what is required.
Okay, well we'll start off, we'll jump straight to the system itself then. So it's actually called Adobe Connect, and I'm just going to make sure I've actually loaded the right window.
Now, actually, I must tell you this because we have a really exciting programme lined up for students in October. We're going to have Student Hub Live online rooms, and we're going to be doing an essay writing workshop in the evenings. So any student with any essay to write can come along, and we'll be giving you some advice on things that you might need to consider, and then you can have the chance to share a live piece of work with other students. So we'll be doing that in these online rooms, which will be really, really brilliant. So I hope you can join us for those as well.
So what I've done is we've got the laptop here that's set up, and we're connected to Adobe Connect, which is the kind of the program that sits in the background. Now, in terms of how this works, if people have kind of been using Skype, or they might have been using FaceTime, or some of the other kind of some of the Facebook tools, they're quite used to the idea of talking to one another using webcams or using a tablet or a mobile device. The kind of additional bits that come with the online room and the Adobe Connect in particular is that it kind of adds another layer onto that that kind of communication tool, if you like. So one of the key things that we do in the university is we want to make sure that students can come into an online space. And it may be that the tutor that's working with a group of students might want to do a series of kind of guided presentations with a bit of interactivity. It may be that it's a completely kind of democratic space where there are opportunities in the middle of a session to kind of break out into little groups, as it were, and talk amongst themselves and try out a few activities. So one of the things that I've put up on screen here is actually the whiteboard space. So one of the kind of easiest kind of equivalents to this is what you might see on the TV, or you might have even seen them yourselves in schools, where there's kind of like the interactive whiteboard that people have at the front of the screen now, and people are writing on it, and sometimes they bring up a group of kids or somebody to interact. So this is kind of the same thing, but it's done in a kind of completely online setting, and make sure that people can, wherever they are in the country or even in the world really, can get online into the same space and actually contribute their ideas here when they're asked. There's a number of different things that you might be asked to do in a tutorial. One of them might be to actually move things on the screen, or add some links to concepts, or try and join up some different ideas, for example. It may be that actually, once you get going with the tool, the lecturer or the tutor who's actually delivering the session will just ask for some quick feedback in a poll or something like you're doing here today.
And just before you show us, Rod, we've got a slight problem with the sound on your microphone, so we're just going to fix that for one second. Okay. And while we do, I know that a lot of people in the chat have been talking about the tutorials that they're going to attend. People have been asking as well about whether they can access them from different devices, like mobile phones and tablets and things like that, which you can, and which is brilliant as well, because you can access this from those sorts of spaces. So, so all of those things are there. What sort of feedback have we been getting about what sort of feelings people have about going to tutorials? Are people sort of planning on attending them?
I think some people are used to the old system, so they're really looking forward to this session because it means that they can sort of get a lowdown. And a lot of people are nervous, but there's nothing to be nervous about going to a tutorial. You can just sit there and just listen if you like. That you can ask any question you want to your tutor. They're basically there to help you. So whatever you want to get out of them, then just feel free to pop along.
It's one of those funny things often, because I know, you know, we used to sort of do like online sessions together, and one of the anxieties people used to have was they say, well, I don't know, like if I turn up, people are going to say, and what do you think? And you sort of have to have an opinion. And there was this whole thing about like, will they see my bedroom? Will they see me in my pyjamas? You know, so it's this whole idea of what to expect when you're actually in a space. And I think it's that sort of thing that can sort of be helpful for students to realise that actually all you'll be is a name listed on there. No one can make you do anything in this sort of space, and that can be really reassuring for students.
And it's up to you if you join in and chat or just sit and listen. Either way, your tutor will be glad just to know that you're there and have taken something away from it. And it's just a great chance to meet other students. So before it starts, sometimes I pop in 10 minutes early and we have a chat about how far behind we all are, or how we're all struggling on something. So it's great actually to see where other people are with it.
Yeah, it's more than just the learning that happens. But tell us, Rod, then, so this is the sort of space, and I mentioned before about how visible people were as participants.
Sure.
Could you just sort of talk us through so that people know what we will see and how they will be positioned?
Just bring up on that particular point, actually, what we'll do here is that this is quite flexible from a tutor's perspective to actually set up the room. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to hide the video, because culturally we don't really use a huge amount of video in the UK, whereas people in America are really, really keen on everybody being on the web chat and kind of talking to one another, and they can see everybody's faces and kind of see what's going on in the background, like you were saying. But in our case, what we mainly do is we'll have a session which is set up where we have a number of different kind of layouts of little panels of content that things might happen. So I talked about the whiteboard already. The thing that you can see at the bottom here is a text chat, and Zoe's already on her iPad, so she's accessing an iPad and actually using that text chat.
So that people can see.
Oh, brilliant.
So you kind of get a similar kind of layout.
Functionality, brilliant.
And you can do simple things like that, and you can do simple things like write with your finger, which is what you just did with a hello on the screen there. But one of the things that we are trying to make quite clear to students is that there are some modules, like languages, for example, where if you really want to engage, and one of the key things is that the tutors really want you to be able to talk and practice your language, then you need a headset, really, to be kind of really perfect quality. In some cases, you might, with a laptop like we've got here, you've got an onboard microphone and you've got speakers here, and you could use that to kind of interact with the session. Or you can kind of work with the materials that have been provided to you, interact with those, interact with the polls like we mentioned, text chat in that area, and then all you really see is, as you can see, there's names just here maybe. That's the kind of the list of people who are in the session with you, and that's pretty much all that you have to volunteer. But you'll get more out of the session the more you actually contribute. So you can sit there passively, but generally what we'll want to be doing in the sessions is trying to encourage people to talk to one another. It's kind of like a nice, secure environment in which to have a conversation about the learning, also about some of the materials that you might see in the module, but also, as you said, kind of bouncing off one another in terms of peer support and talking about how you're getting on with your studies. So there are kind of lots of different things you can do with the room, and I think that's kind of important to note, because you can use it as most basic, which is what we've got in front of us here, just a blank screen. You can use it on the different devices, but then as people get more familiar with the technology, you might be asked to do some more different things in terms of the activities that are available to you. So I think at this point I'm just going to make sure that Zoe's kind of had a chance to kind of make sure I've covered the main points and talk over some of the other things that are done. So I think we've got in front of us here, we've got the kind of the quick reference guides that we make available. And there's a lot of support material that we have. So we can bring those up and just kind of make sure we touch on those so people know where to get some of that advice.
Can students break anything in this room? No. Or is it just tutors who can break things?
No. I think one of the things, so Rod's explained that there are lots of different pods, lots of boxes within a room. I think the thing to say is for us, from a student perspective, there's no need to worry. There's no expectations that you can add them into the room, remove them. You will see what your tutor chooses to show you, and they will move the room around and they will change the layout potentially. And hopefully there will be some elements that may stay the same, such as the attendee pod or the chat pod. But then the main focus, it depends on what they're wanting to show. They may be wanted to present a PowerPoint to you and maybe pause that so you can all annotate over the top, or they may be wanting to give you a web tour of your module website. But the main thing is, to answer your question, no, they can't break anything. There's nothing that can really go wrong.
So whilst it's useful to know sort of that you can chat, that you can possibly see other people in the room, and that it's sort of a friendly space, students pretty much turn up at the tutorial a little bit beforehand, and then this will be all set up. And the tutor will often tell them, I mean, they don't need to go and swat about how to attend, do they? Because we've had 82% who are definitely going to attend tutorials, 17% are unsure. Of those, 53, well, yeah, the same sort of respondents, 53 have attended tutorials in the past. But it's interesting because 31% of students at the moment say that they're planning on attending online tutorials, whereas 4 are saying face-to-face and 63% are saying both. And it's very, very common to have a combination of the two. But what we're seeing here is that online tutorials are certainly very appealing to students, but there are some who are not sure whether they're going to attend. And that might be for a range of reasons. It might be due to disability, it might be due to time constraints and dependencies, etc. So it might be a range of things that are there. But what we hope is that we can explain enough to you about tutorials so that you can make a considered decision based on your particular circumstances.
So I think it's really important to say, I mean, I see that Rod's now showing the participant views of it. So before you might have seen a lot more options and things that you could add into a room. As a student, you won't see those. That's what a host will see, so the tutor of a room. So what I'm showing now is the participant view. And so you will get to use your microphone, and you can speak and you can listen within a room. The webcam might be added, but as Rod has already explained, in a lot of rooms the webcam might not be needed. But what you might see in place of the video being shared, if the tutor isn't using that, you might just see an image of the tutor. So they're showing you what they look like, providing a friendly face at the start of the online room. And then depending on the session, this room will change. So what we're saying is you're probably going to see an attendee pod, you're probably going to see a chat pod. You may see poll pods, but the main area is this, and that's where there'll be either sharing, you might see a blank whiteboard, which is what we have up on the screen right now, or you might see a PowerPoint or a PDF, or a video might be being played, or it might be that you're working in an application that the tutor is sharing.
Well, everyone is very relieved that they can't break this system, which is good. So I wonder if you can talk us through how they actually get online, where they find it, and what they need to do the first time they try to get online.
Okay, so I think from you've been seeing and talking through some of the tutorial and the overall website design, the way all of the tools that we have on the module website work is that they're all integrated from this point. So you don't need to think about signing up to another system, putting in some other username and password, all that business that you might do elsewhere. We try and make sure that everything's linked from that module website. So when you'll see a tutorial available, there is that tutorials tab, which I think you've had a chance to look through. And then once you've actually booked onto a session, or indeed turned up, walked in, I think is the phrase, then you'll actually see the list of sessions in the room that you attend. You click on the link and it will take you to a page similar to what I've got on screen here. Ignore some of the business on the left because that's just particular to this particular session. But essentially what we've got is we've got some very basic information on the room, but then there's like a key set of points that we've added in here. One of them is, if you are going to look at it in advance, then we do suggest that people look at the user guide, and there is actually an introductory video, and I'll just flip over to that tab here. And this is the computing guide, as it's sometimes called, and there's a lot of material on here about the module websites, the VLE, virtual learning environment that it's held in. And we've put together a lot of information for participants and also for people who might be working as hosts, might be tutors, but it might be other people longer term. So we've put all the information that we've got up front. And then what we've also tried to do, as I said, is we've put a little video up, which is about 12 minutes. It's worth people having a quick chance to look at before they even engage, just to get an idea of the type of session that might be run. As a little walkthrough of the different types of sessions. We're using a bit of jargon already, like pods and layouts. It's something that's kind of quite unique to the product, so kind of that language will start to become more familiar. But essentially, once you've had a chance to look through some of that material, make sure you've gone through these steps if you can, particularly as we were talking about the headsets. That's the only real thing. If you want to engage just by text chatting, that's okay, but the more, as I said, the more you contribute, and that might include making yourself known by speaking, then the more you'll get out of the session. And it's a lot easier. I mean, let's face it, to actually kind of talk if you can, rather than spend all your time talking through your fingers.
Spelling and anything like that.
So if you can talk, then great. But The headset is particularly important for things like languages and for periods when you need to be talking at length. So if you were doing a little presentation, or if you're doing something later on in your studies, then having a headset just makes that helpful, and it makes everybody else have a good experience. Because one of the things that we found, because we've been using these kinds of software for a while, is that people will forgive okay, dodgy video, but if the audio isn't right and you can't make out what somebody's saying, then it just means that you spend your whole time like with your hands over your head going, I can't work out what they're saying, I'm going to fiddle around with my volume and all that kind of stuff. So just having the best quality you can get means that it's much better for everybody participating. So those are the kind of the steps that we've got, and there's always help available. If you kind of get stuck with the technology, or if you get stuck trying to get into the room in the first place, then there's a computing help desk that can help with that, and I think there's also spending a bit of time talking about that in a bit as well, or you have already, I can't remember.
We've been talking about Rhodri, but I did actually want to mention the computing help desk and what sort of support they could have in this session. So maybe you could fill people in. We'll be talking a little bit later, though, about what happens in tutorials and how to engage with your tutor. So that is coming. I know there are questions about that, but hang fire and we'll sort of address that in the next session coming up. The computing help desk then, Rod, what do they sort of offer in terms of support? I know that you can see the computing help desk number here as well for students to call. They're open on a range of hours as well to suit student requirements.
So one of the key things that they are is that they are the kind of the technical help desk. So if there's something that comes up with trying to access the module materials online, it's all delivered online. If you've got an issue with the particular browser that you're using, if you've got an issue with maybe your operating system and you don't know whether it's compatible or not, or you've tried something and it doesn't work, they're really there to help you kind of get to the right place to do what you need to do. So in the case of Adobe Connect, in the case of our online rooms, the help desk can help you find the right room, if they know where you're supposed to be, and then follow the links up like we've done just now. Click through to the Join Room button, which is the one thing I didn't mention, which is at the bottom of this screen. And then once you click on that Join Room, then you're into Adobe Connect. So they will take you all the way from making sure that you've got everything you need through to that Join button.
And they're really friendly and good if you're in a bit of a panic about things, aren't they?
Yeah. I think the one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that the Join Room page will change slightly. So at the moment, the checklist is very much telling you how to get in if you're using a laptop or a desktop computer. But if you were using a mobile device, the checklist would change just slightly. So there's no need for an audio setup wizard on a mobile device. Instead, you would use an app. It would say to you, oh, I see that you're using a mobile device. Do you want to open this with the Adobe Connect app? And you just say yes. And you can install that really quickly. And then you can get into an online room from your device, which is what we've got here on the table.
And one of the things that we were quite keen to do with the suppliers that we're working with, in this case Adobe, is that we tried to, as I said, make things join up. But also the point is that you should just be able to click through, and then it should give you the options too, if you need to download something or if you need to go to a different place. It should handle that journey for you. If for whatever reason that doesn't work, that's where the computing help desk come in as well.
Any advice from people at home about tips, and what are you chuckling about?
Sorry, someone just asked how old everyone is in the chat room. It's great to see a good spread, because when I was attending tutorials, it was great to have people there who'd been working and had experience, because it's really great to chat to them. And I found out they were interested in chatting to me and seeing what I thought as well, which was really interesting. So that's a great thing about the OU. But
how old is everyone? I hope you're doing a poll on this. I can see lots of people putting in
there's
their
lots
ages.
of different
Brilliant.
ages, isn't it? We've got 43, 38, 19. I'm 22, and Jacqueline said, oh, to be 22.
And people putting in fractions as well, which is quite accurate. And there's a sort of a thing to credit a rigour for.
Yes. But I did say, Debbie, that although I'm 22, I am told that I'm on old soul. My friends keep calling me a dad. So I don't think I'm too much of a dad. Dad card, dad clothes. But no, I don't agree with that. But no, Kate says the computing help desk is brilliant. I think so too. There's loads of ways you can get help with the OU. That's one of the ways. One thing we did want to say, Kate and Kerry said that they're really glad that you can't break these online rooms. Yeah. I think I am too. I can mess things up on these computers at some point. But some of the questions we had were, can we still attend tutorials if we forget to book? So what happens if there's a tutorial date? What do we have to do?
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah, very good one. So the kind of the new thing for the university, well, for about a year and a bit now, is that you can book onto a range of different events. and some of them might be delivered by your own tutor, some of them might be delivered by a tutor working with them, they might be doing a bit of team teaching possibly. So there's lots of different things that are going on to try and make sure that there are enough options for people to try and get onto a tutorial or a different event. And part of that means that when you're trying to kind of launch a session, you kind of have a number of different options that might be available to you. So the key one is that you've got a tutorial room, and that's where we want everybody to get to. And one of the things that we found from the last year of running these on the old system was that we'd like people to book, and we try and encourage people to book, but if you can't, or you've kind of got a free hour or something that's just happened to kind of materialise out of somewhere, then you can actually go to the room if you know there's an event on, and then actually just click in and join it.
The benefit of booking is that you sort of know that you're going,
exactly.
don't you? It'll then go on your study calendar, and
Yeah.
you can have a lot of more organisation and
Absolutely.
control over your study week.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've been trying to do is if you've booked, we're trying to make that journey the easiest possible.
And then have a link there as well.
Exactly.
Isn't
So
it
it all follows on from one thing from the next. So if you've actually gone from the booking, you can get through quite straightforwardly to the right room and make sure that you're ready and ready to go. One of the things that we are saying though is that because of the number of tutorials that are happening, sometimes there might be crossover with a tutorial that's happening earlier on in the evening, for example, in some cases. So what we've provided is if you wanted to check your audio, for example, and you can't get into the room because they don't open until the tutor's there, then you can do a little audio check beforehand to make sure you're fine. If you are going to be joining a tutorial, then we kind of advise that you're there about 15 minutes before the official start of the session to allow for any little glitches. And then once you're in the session, then obviously the tutor is there with you. They might want to say, you know, hold on for a minute. You can have talk amongst yourselves for 15 minutes while I kind of finalise my setup. And then they kind of formally start at the top of the hour or a half hour, whenever there's actually booked.
Okay, so it's a good idea to go, and when the tutorials come up, because they're not there yet, when the tutorials start on the new modules, you go through, figure out what you can go to, book into those, but if you haven't booked in, you can always go back and join any session that you want to.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Now, some of these sessions are recorded. There are different policies within different areas of the university on this. But could you just say something about what might happen in those sort of circumstances?
Okay, well, if your tutorial was to be recorded, then the tutor would alert everybody to this at the beginning before they started press record. And they would check that everybody was happy that the recording was going to be made. The recording then at the end of the session will automatically appear for the tutor underneath the Join Room button on this page here. And what happens is then the tutor can make that available for every student to see, and that will sit on a table underneath the Join Room button. Now, as you've said, not every session is recorded, so it's really dependent on whether the tutor and everybody in the room feels comfortable about that being recorded, and then it goes from there. But there isn't a blanket, everything is recorded.
Brilliant. I think we've covered most of the points on here. I just want to go to you and see if there are any things that we haven't covered so far that people want to know.
I don't think so. I think we covered it all. I did have a question about recordings, but you covered it. I think one of the tips that we had is that if you've got an online tutorial planned, is don't turn off your Wi-Fi as a punishment for naughty kids, because you might need that.
Do other people do that as well?
I've also been told that it's good to make sure the electricity is topped up. That's one. And I remember one of my friends, every time someone called his house and picked up the phone, the internet went off. So perhaps we'll have to be aware.
I think we're all at a level of technical advanced to be able to switch off the parental controls and just turn off the children's devices so it doesn't impact. Although I can't say that for myself. But I'm sure you out there are super organised and can get to grips with that amongst all the other things you've been doing.
It does bring up one point, though, for us, I think, in terms of the experience that we've had with this kind of software and other software. So, I mean, people are probably familiar with Skype, and sometimes Skype is great, and sometimes it is messy and nasty, and it just doesn't want to connect, and it bells you out all the time. So a lot of that is actually down to the kind of connection that you might have. So even though you might have, let's say, the companies are publicised that they've got this fantastic, super fast broadband thing. What you might find is later on in the evening, in particular, and on the weekends, you're competing with a lot of different people. Yeah. So your connection speed might be good, but the consistency of it, so how kind of uniform it is, might not be so good. So you might be having these kind of periods of dropout, and you kind of have these spikes of activity. So one of the things with these kind of tools is that they are a little bit more sensitive to that. So one of the bits of advice that we've kind of picked up over time is try not to use Wi-Fi unless you really have to. So if you've got a wired connection, wired's always better.
Right.
And if you have got a lot of other things going on in the household, try and get them not to use Wi-Fi if you're using it, like you've already said. But also, one of the things to kind of bear in mind is that when you're connecting through to a session, one of the things that we've got available to us on the tool, if I just quickly flick back to it, is you can see just on this far right corner, hopefully, there is this little green, thankfully it's green for us at the moment, and that kind of gives you a bit of information as to how good your connection is. So if you see that start to go orange or red, then it means that you have got some slightly kind of variable quality of connection.
Does it matter what's going on your computer? Should you turn off all of your Excel spreadsheets and things?
That not so much, but one of the things that Windows loves doing is all these updates in the background. So one of the things that we have found, and our suppliers have been telling us, is that they don't have as many problems with connection. What they do have problems with is Windows doing updates.
Right.
Or
which they
the
are
Mac
regularly
doing.
Yeah.
So again, just to kind of keep an eye on that, if you think it's slowing down or it's getting a bit laggy, then there may be something else going on the machine. So if you can, just try and stop them from happening, that you can do things like that usually from the system trays at the bottom, or if you're a Mac user, there might be something on the top of the screen that allows you to give that control a bit more. Put it, if you've got options, make the update hours later on in the evening or even early morning if you leave your computer on the whole time. But there are things like that. There are all these little tools that can help you. And again, Computing Help Desk can offer some advice on some of that if that becomes a problem. And you know, we're all here to try and make sure that everybody can get to the right space, have a good experience online, and make sure it's something that you can keep on coming back to again and again.
Brilliant.
I think that's something with mobile devices as well, is that, you know, I've got caught out before, make sure you keep your apps updated.
Yes. And your
Don't keep
battery is
ignoring
charged.
it.
And as Vincent has pointed out, to always make sure that the electricity meter is topped up so you don't get cut off midway through a tutorial. So all very important considerations, but they shouldn't be too difficult for all you very organised students out there. Rod and Zoe, thank you very much for showing us the online rooms. I hope you're going to come and join us in them, because we've got some opportunities for you to do that. We've got these essay writing workshops which will be starting in mid-October, where there's a chance for you to come into these online rooms with us, bring your essay along, and we will crack it together. Right, I see you're all talking about comparing headsets and games. Well, we have a short video for you taken a few weeks ago when it was summer, and I'll show you the Legacy Garden now, which was in beautiful full bloom. And then I'm joined by John Quillow, where we're going to talk about one of the most important contacts you're going to have, and that is with your tutor. I'll see you in a few minutes.